So welcome to Mind Games. This is a project that Pete and I put together on the fly during filming of another project. And it's something that, it's a subject dear to our heart, I guess you could say. It's something we've jammed ideas on and discussed over many years. And the psychological principles that are in play here are some of them traditional, some of them a bit more radical, but overall what you're getting is a mixture of everything. So
that's it. I'm really happy with some of the stuff on here. We're about to go through the footage and do an overview. But before we get into that, I want to answer one important question that I know some of you might have, and it's, what is a psychological force? A psychological force is exactly what it sounds like. It's something that's psychological that forces somebody else to think of whatever it is you want them to think of. So let's take a mechanical force, which would work with, say, a deck of playing cards. You might know a card force, or you might know the crosscut force or the classic force. That's a playing card force. Remove the playing cards. If you were to get them to think of a card and you somehow guided them to it, that's psychological. So that'd be a psychological force. Now, some of the forces on this set, we've deemed them to be psychomechanical because it's almost a mechanical process. We've just eradicated the props.
yeah.
So let's jump into this project. Open it and have a look. An apple. Have a look what I wrote. Apple, spider. Put them face up there. Let's have a look. I tried to send you the 6 of spades.
So a big question that pops up a lot is, are psychological forces reliable? And the answer is, a good psychological force is very, very reliable. It'd be impossible to say these are 100%. But what we're going to teach you here is some tools and some ideas which will make these 100%, give you the assurances you need, and give you the backup you need. And in addition, we'll let you know if something hasn't hit before you go into your big reveal or the big moment that you get to the point where you're going to need this to have hit or not hit.
That's it. We've put plenty of safeguards in place. And we do mention in a moment what we've just told you again, but we mention it very briefly, so we thought it'd be worth a mention that we feel that we've made this as reliable as possible. So let's jump into the project. Welcome to this project. Me and Mark were discussing the best way to film these explanations, and we both decided that there were an inherent amount of value in just sitting down in random locations like we usually would if we were away on a trip like this and jamming. So sometimes it's going to look very raw, sometimes we'll literally be in the middle of a bar, we'll just stick a camera on the side, and you'll get to hear the jam sessions that surround psychological ideas and the fail-safe outs that we've created over decades of performing this type of material.
Yeah.
Now, I want to stress the importance of these type of brainstorming sessions. Take, for example, an ambitious card routine. Me and Mark could quite happily sit down and go, it's just a double lift, you put the card in the middle, snap your fingers and the card jumps to the top. But we don't feel that there's a value in that. So what we want to do is we want to talk about the subtleties and nuances that we've accrued over the years of doing these techniques. And then we both meet, talk about our approaches, jam and find a solid middle ground. And by letting our ideas just flow, you're getting the best of the best instead of it just being that monotonous process of explanations and then one performance and another explanation, then a performance and explanation. So sometimes we're going to be going off on deviated routes and we're going to be going off on tangents. And I really, really feel that the information that we're about to share is absolutely golden because of that. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the way we do it when we work. We work together on TV projects, we work together on people's theatre shows when we're consulting. And this is literally how we work. We sit there and brainstorm these ideas, and no egos involved. We're quite happy to present an idea that gets shot down by the other person, and we help develop each other's ideas. And I think that's the crux of this, is the fact that what we're hoping to give you is some tools. While we might be jamming on a specific idea, what we end up doing ourselves is developing a tool set around something that can be applied to many other things. And I think that's really key if you can take that away from this.
And as Mark said, you know, we're not worried about ideas being shot down. So I'm 100% sure that during this, you'll see some blemishes.
Yeah.
And we'll say if an idea is bad, or, you know, we'll go down a path that goes nowhere, and we'll openly state, oh yeah, that's no good, ignore that. But you'll get to see the creative process like you were a fly on the wall in the situation. And also, Mark's going to be shooting a first-person perspective view from a GoPro, so you can see what we're doing at the table when we do it up close and personal, as if you were sat here as well.
So, Pete, can you tell us a bit about the Spider Force?
Yeah, so the Spider Force were originally meant to make it on the Devious Realities project. So Devious Realities were my first book that were released with Kenton Nepper, and I sent Kenton a series of ideas, and I think that it were a mixture of two things that stopped it from making it into that book. And the first was that I just wasn't good at writing. So when I wrote this up, it just literally sounded like the spectator thinks of something, you reveal it's a spider, and I couldn't properly convey all the safeguards and ways that this were reliable. And I think at the time, another thing that stopped it from being something that made it into the book is that this stuff wasn't considered really possible. You know, people were doing psychological forces, but it were, you know, think of a letter from A to E and then imagine putting a circle around one of them in your head.
Grey elephants in Denmark.
Yeah, you know, and so this really stood out on its own at the time because there wasn't really anything like this. Do you know what I mean? This is the thing that you're about to watch, the performance that you're about to see is genuinely exactly what it looks like. It's, if mind reading was real or influence was real, this in its best form is exactly what it would look like.
You are speaking and they are making this decisions or actions based on what you're saying. It's pure. Yeah,
that's it. So let's take a look at the Spider Force and then we'll explain it. We'll jump into the explanations.
Cool.
Felipe, you worked in sales, so you'd say you've got a good understanding of the human mind.
Yeah.
Well, the technique I'm about to show you is something that I'll share with you later that you can apply to be able to influence anybody to think of anything in the world.
Okay.
Right? So for now, look away a second. I'm going to write something down. I don't want you to see where it is.
Okay.
You could turn back round. Would you say you've got a good memory?
That's all right, I suppose.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
So I'll tell you what, I'm going to name some categories and all I want you to do is remember them. That's all. So it could be places, insects, times, names, numbers, letters, or brands.
Okay.
So just name one of those categories back to me.
Insect.
And that's a free choice.
Yeah.
If I asked you right now to name, say, a creepy crawly or a bug like an ant, what pops into your head?
Spider.
A spider. Now, bear in mind, you could have gone for places, and that would have been Bradford, Germany, Leeds, Spain, or any other place in the world.
Yeah.
You could have gone for times, and that would have been any time throughout the day, night, whatever. You could have gone for letters, it would have been any letters. Names would have been any name. Mm-hmm. You had a completely free choice to go for whatever you wanted, and you said insects and spider.
Yeah.
If I'd managed to influence you to go for insect and spider, would that be impressive?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to touch it, turn it over and take a look.
Oh, no. Fucking spider.
It's great, isn't it?
That's amazing.
So this is exactly what I do. I put ideas into people's heads. I guess what it is they're thinking of. It's nothing too intrusive.
That's really impressive.
You can hold that if you want and just point it around. Name like a creepy crawly or a bug.
Like a spider.
A spider.
Yeah.
Now, out of everything that you could have gone for in the world, you could have gone for Bradford, Germany, Leeds, Spain if it had been a place. Numbers could have been any number. Letters could have been any letter. Brands could have been absolutely any brand. But you said that you wanted spider. You chose the category insect.
Yeah.
One thing that you lot don't know is before you ever sat down, I went round the bar and I were placing beer mats underneath glasses. And here's one of those beer mats. You could have picked absolutely anything, right, Lennon? If that said you will choose spider, would you freak out?
Probably, yeah.
Take the glass off.
That is honestly What is that? He literally put it down. That is mad.
So let's talk about the Spider Force. It's a really interesting force because it lays the groundwork for the all-seeing force that's also on this project. And it sort of dips off in a different direction if it doesn't run as smoothly as you'd like it to run. Now, there's a few bits of foundation or boxing required to make it work the way that it works. And Mark has used this effect for years, and he has a different way that it works, and he's going to share his tips and techniques, and then we'll come back to what happens if this doesn't work. So let's talk about ideal world first, and then if you can rein me back to bring me back to what happens if other selections are made, and just randomize your selections all the way along.
Yeah.
So notice how I frame this up. So go back to the performance, play the performance over and over again, because whenever you're watching Psychological Forces, the one thing that is imperative is that you totally understand what's going on in each moment of the setup, the bit where you're running through the middle of it, and then the ending where you're revealing the information. You've got to know it inside and out. And you can't deviate too much from the scripts that we're giving you. So you've got to rehearse them. But one thing that I'd suggest, and hear me out because this is really important, this is one of the biggest tips that you're going to get on this project. Do not perform this material the way that I perform it or the way that Mark performs it. The problem with video is that you end up imitating the person that you're watching. So my advice would be this: rehearse the script, listen to it, write down the words as it's going along, and then film yourself saying it and watch that over and over again, because then the only person that you're imitating is yourself, and then it's not really an imitation.
Yeah.
Right.
And the reason for that, it's not the reason that we care about you being clones or doing something the way we would do it. We're not bothered by that. But because of the nature of how these forces and these things work, it's important that you're delivering it naturally, or else it will be jarring for the person you're performing for. Like, they will notice if you suddenly start talking
strangely
in an odd way, and it's less likely to work for you if you do that. So that's why we're telling you to make it your own and practice you saying it as you would say it.
That's it. So pay close attention to the way that I frame this up. I frame it up as a memory test. And the reason that I do that is that it buys me leverage in the routine. So the first question that I ask is this, and this is a pinnacle question. Mark, would you say that you've got a good memory?
Yeah, reasonable.
Better long-term or short-term?
Long term.
Well, I'm going to give you a bit of time to stew over the things that I ask so that you can answer me. But I'm going to name some categories, and all you've got to do is remember what they are. That's the first bit. I'm not saying to Mark that this is an effect. I'm not saying to Mark that, look, I'm going into a trick here or an effect. I'm saying to Mark, how good's your memory? That's my get out of jail free card to buy myself a couple of times to try to get them to go for what I want. And if I realize they're not, I can then exit and use it as that, okay, now I know about your memory. Mm-hmm. But I'll get to that in a bit. So now we've laid the groundwork for what's about to come. And we'll deal with the perfect scenario first, and then we'll talk about the ways around getting out of if they answer differently, which is a section entirely on its own. But now I use a thing called potent placement. And I'll always place whatever category it is that I want to force in the second position. Now, Mark does that differently, and he'll get to, at the end of this, how he does it differently and why he does it differently and why you might have to do it differently. But for now, we'll just roll through the performance that you've seen and the explanation. So I look at Mark, and I'm looking, I say, I'm going to name some categories, and all you've got to do is try to remember them. Mm-hmm. And now I look at my hand, and I go, this could be places. And I look up at Mark, insects. Now remember these categories, places, insects, and then I go boom, boom, boom. Times, names, numbers, letters, or brands. So I'll roll that again. It could be places, insects, times, names, numbers, letters, or brands. Now I nod on numbers, letters, or brands, and I snap. And I found that by snapping and nodding on the back end, people think that's what he wants me to go for. That's what he wants me to remember. So then they pick something else, and they end up picking one at random. And because the first one is very obvious and it's a memory test, and then I go, it could be places, insects, and I look at you, times, names, numbers, letters, or brands. Name one of them back to me. I don't say name the first one back to me, name the last one. I say name one of them back to me. And when I say name one of them back to me, insect is the one, as you've seen in the performance, that gets chosen. And then I say, what I want you to do is name like a creepy crawly or a bug like an ant. And I then preface and change the goalposts. I don't say name an insect, I say name a creepy crawly or a bug, and I change the goalposts. And most people in that scenario will go for a spider, right? So that's how the performance runs. Of course, it's not going to happen like that every single time. And if it doesn't happen like that, you've got to move into equivocal choreography or equivoque. And you've got to make it seem like that the path that they were going to choose is the path that you'd go down every time. To aptly describe the rest of this, I think what we best do is show the worst case scenario and then slowly move back to the best case. So the worst case scenario is that they're not going to remember insect at all. So can we just run through what had happened there?
Yeah.
So Mark, I want you to remember these categories. It could be places, insects, times, names, numbers, letters, or brands. Just name one of those back to me.
Places,
Can you remember any more?
times, brands,
Any more?
numbers.
Numbers good? No? No more after that? I'll tell you what, the reason why that you didn't remember those is I promised you I was going to give you a bit of time to stew on these to remember them, and I didn't. And also, because you can see what's going on around you, there's visual distraction. So what I want you to do is close your eyes for me. Now, I know you can't see that because Mark's got his glasses on, but Mark would close his eyes, and then I'd say, I'm going to name these again. Just listen to me. It could be places, insects, times, names, numbers, letters, brands. Now, if you listen to that back, I accented insects there. And because he didn't name that the first time, there's a good chance he'll name it this time, but we're going for the worst case scenario. So let's imagine Mark doesn't say that. So, Mark, name some categories back to me.
Places, times, numbers, brands.
Okay. Do you remember any more? No. I think now that the things that you named, the categories you named, are very visual-based categories, and that tells me exactly how I need to work with you for what I'm about to show you. So, visual-based thinker, better long-term memory. Think of one of the categories that you just picked. Take this piece of card, and I want you to think of something that's personal to you from one of those categories. Now, I didn't know what you were going to remember. Write down whatever it is you're thinking of. And now I segue off into a billet routine, because it's quicker than trying to get you to remember something. However, there's only one time that I don't do that. If you remember every other category apart from insects. Because I say to you, now I'm going to be really honest, the idea for me was about making you forget just one category to show you how easily your brain's manipulated. And now by doing that, I go, you definitely can't remember the category. And I go, insects. And they go, oh, insects. And now I say, that's the one that I tried to make you forget. But and now I move into the creepy crawler or creepy crawly, and I rope it back. That's the only time that I do that. If not, I just quickly move into a billet routine and use it as a gauging test.
Yeah.
Now, as Mark will tell you, most spectators don't know where a routine's going. They don't know how it ends. And the brilliant carte blanche you have as a mentalist as opposed to a magician, when you're a magician, you can't really say, oh, that tells me everything I need to know about you. That tells me everything I need to know about you. That's
Really?
going to come up on the screen.
Remember that.
It's the best line you'll ever learn.
Yeah.
Because if something's totally going wrong, it's beyond your control, you spent a minute setting something up and you know it's going to fail, it seems now like you were profiling the person to learn about them to then move into something else.
Yeah, and this routine's got perfect reason for that, because you said at the beginning, you framed it as a memory test. So basically all you're doing is seeing how good their memory is. So if your insect doesn't hit, then you just leave it. Okay, good. So I understand you've actually got a pretty good memory compared to most people. And that's the sort of thing you can say, and then just move on to your other effects. So no effects happen for them, so no effects failed for them.
And that's it. So you're in this really interesting situation now where it was just a memory test, and that's it. So now we've discussed the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is using the billet peak that we taught you earlier on in this project. And there is a plane going over, so you might be able to hear that. But because we taught you a billet peak, you just simply move into the billet peak that we taught you earlier on, and that's your fail-safe out in this scenario if you're ever drowning and you can't get out of the situation. Now, I'm a little bit bolder than that, and as you notice, I place a prediction openly down on the table. I try not to do it on my phone because I don't want people having the suspicion that it might be an app or it might just be a voice recording. And I've heard people say that, oh, is it just voice recorded? So I always try to write it because the written medium cannot change once it's committed to and it's in front of somebody. So don't feel like you know, if you're in a bar, literally grab a beer mat, tear the back of it off, write it down on a beer mat. It might seem like it's scruffy, but there's nothing that says impromptu like, oh, have you got a pen and a beer mat?
Yeah.
You know, put your drink on top of it.
Yeah.
There's nothing that feels more impromptu than that.
Yeah, and you could also write on their hand or something like that, and they keep their hand down on the table, that sort of thing. There are.
That's it, and now they're holding on to it. I don't know what that is, but that's so strange, isn't it? The moment you start filming, everything seems to start coming out. But so what happens if it doesn't work? Well, you now move into equivoque. So I want to discuss the different variants of equivoque, and Mark's going to pick at random different outcomes, and I'll try to show you those different outcomes. So let's take a look at what you do if you need to equivocate to get down to the one thing they're thinking of.
So this section we're on to now is the section on equivoque or equivoque. There's differences of opinion about how it's pronounced. Could be equivoque or equivoque. I don't really care which it is. I don't know which is correct. It's all French to me.
I mean, you could take equivoque in your left hand and equivoque in your right, and you could take one from me.
Yeah, it's also known as magician's choice. So
that's it. So really simply, it's essentially a force where you change the direction of the end of the effect. So in simple terms, let's say there's two roads, and each of these roads seem like a fair choice, but they lead to the same destination. Probably doing a really bad job of describing it, but it doesn't matter, because what we're about to get into, it gives you practical applications where you can really see what this is.
Yeah.
So let's roll into that.
So Mark's going to throw at me a series of different situations that could crop up during this performance, because I can't possibly show you every single outcome. But what I can do is give you the tools to deal with any necessary situation. And if Mark picks a few situations at random, you can be sure that I can show you how to get out of those situations, and you just apply that thinking to any other one that comes up. So Mark, let's say that we went through it and I'm going to run into the equivoque. I've told you what happens if they don't pick insect. So let's just play with a few random ones. So it could be places, insects, times, names, numbers, letters, or brands. So just name one of those categories back to me.
Brands.
Do you remember any others? Now, there's a key line there. Do you remember any others? And it makes it seem like it's still that memory test.
Places.
Good.
Insects.
Good.
Times.
Times, yeah. Is that it? So you remembered 4 of those. I couldn't have known what you were going to remember. There's no way I could have made you forget specific things. So I want you to imagine those 4 categories written in the air for me. And I'm going to tell you now, this is via process of elimination. Just name 2 of those categories.
So what's about to happen is Mark's about to name 2 insects, and I'll use a force called the peripheral force. Now, I want to be really honest, if you try to look through traditional text to find the peripheral force, you're not going to find it. And the reason you're not going to find it is because I named it specifically so that you'll be able to find it with ease in this project. It'd be really great if it went on to be called the peripheral force, but it's...
I mean, it has been used before. We're not claiming any originality on the idea, but it's never been labelled as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, same. I don't think it has. But yeah, watch it really carefully, and just remember that when you're using this type of force, you can use it for other things.
Yeah.
Places and insects.
Good. And completely free choices, by the way. So I want you to imagine places, insects. And so Mark could have picked any of these. In fact, Mark, just hand me any one of these. Mark could have picked absolutely any one. This is the one that he wants to go for. Which one's this?
Insect.
Insects. So it's a completely free choice. I'm using what they call a peripheral force there. And the idea is that it's very difficult in this situation. It might seem hammy that I'm talking to nobody, but usually I'd be talking to people and bouncing off the energy of these people. And as I'm talking, I say, so, and I go, you've got places and insects. And I will get back to how we got to these, but we've got places and insects. And I tell Mark which is which. And I look this way, I'm talking, I can see Mark's hands here. So the view that I've got is out of my peripheral vision. And then I say to Mark, now, Mark could have gone for any of these. Mark, just hand me one of those. And he comes at me, I can see this is insects. And I go, so this is the one that he's chosen out of all of them. Which one's this?
Insects.
And now I ask him. So he's the one that confirms what it is.
And just to be clear, there's no visible billet.
There's nothing. It's just
you're just getting them to imagine that they're holding something.
That's it, holding 2 of these categories. Let's say it had gone the other way and it places insects, I framed them, and I'm looking this way and I say, now, Mark's decided on these, Mark, hand me one of those. And so I've thrown that away, leaving Mark with just this one. Which one are you left with again?
Insects.
Insects. And I did say it's via process of elimination. By setting that line up that this is via process of elimination, it gives me a lot of leeway there.
We're now down to the section of the equivoque where you're going to be down to 4 options, and your spectator's going to be selecting 2 out of those 4 options. And we wanted to address what would happen in a situation where the 2 that they select out of the 4 did not include your force item in there.
That's it. And we don't go into too much depth in the next section. The simple reason is that there's multiple different permutations, and we'd be here all day or there all day trying to explain all the different routes and avenues, and it becomes so overwhelming. But it's simple. Remember, what Mark and I are sharing is a series of tools. And what you've got to do is get used to when you use those tools. So, for example, if I said to you, you want to put a screw into a piece of wood, you're not going to use a hammer. You've learned that that's not the right tool for the job. And that's the same as this. So you could use a simple peripheral force if you wanted for one of the sections, and it could be the line of this is by process of elimination. The one thing that's really important is that you've got to, when you're applying this stuff, remember not to use similar forces twice. So for example, if there's a process before and you use one tool, don't ever use the same tool again. We will jump into that in more detail in a few seconds in another overview section. But I just wanted to mention that here because we're giving you options, we're giving you tools, and you've got to learn when to use those tools. So let's jump back in.
So this is via process of elimination, Mark. Just name any 2 of those.
Places and times.
Good. I said that we're going to be eliminating a couple of those. They're gone. That leaves you with what?
Insects and brands.
So insects and brands. Just imagine you're holding these categories in your hands. And now I look away and I do the peripheral force.
Yeah.
I'm back down to the exact one that I need straight away.
Oh, yeah, it's the same. Yeah.
Exactly the same. But look at that leeway that I give myself with this is via process of elimination. Well, I'm not specifying that you're eliminating or you're keeping to. I'm not specifying.
Sorry, I just wanted to pause it here because I think this would be a good spot for us to interject and talk about one of the most important things when using equivocate, and that's that the direction and instructions you're giving always have to be smooth and they have to be seamless. And the reason is you don't want it to look like after they've given you a response or selected something, you don't want to then be looking to like you're thinking, right, what is it I say now? Like that's had an effect. You always want it to make out that the instruction you're going to give was always the instruction you were going to give at that point, regardless of what selection was made previously. And I think that that's something really important.
So important. I mean, the thing with equivocate is when you look at it retrospectively or from a height, you're almost learning 5 effects in one because it's not just like learning a pick a card trick where they put it back in. You're learning like all the different routes and avenues. And there's only really one time that you should ever break that golden rule. Now, I know that we do mention the fact that this should be seamless somewhere in this vicinity of the footage, but we're making the key points in these sections so that they really get hit home. And if you need to quickly reference, you can just scrub through the timeline, find us, and you know that we're hitting those key points. There's only one time that you can break that seamless transition rule, and that's if you seemingly don't know what the next stage of the selection is going to be. So let's say, for example, the first stage is pick 5 words from one off of that bottle, one from this, the back of a cigarette packet. These are ridiculous examples, but it makes it seem like you didn't know that's where you're going to have them picked from. And then if you said, okay, now we need to reduce a number of these, so let's take this dice, and then they roll it. Okay, there's the number 4 on the dice, so let's get rid of 4 of the categories.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The dice and the labels and everything else are things that are a product of the environment, and therefore it's supposed to seem like you didn't know what route you were going to take.
A bit scatty, a bit unplanned, a bit.
And I think that's something else that, if you're too slick in those moments where it's supposed to be random, I think then the effect, the presentation of what you're sharing doesn't feel credible.
It won't feel spontaneous.
That's it. And so this section, we're probably going to look at, it'll be in here somewhere about those transitions, but it's key. It's a key point.
And I think, it's very important that you need to make it clear that this was what you were always going to say with whatever answer they gave you to that question. That's the point you're making, right? And the reason is because you don't want to make it sound like you're changing your response or you're changing what it is you tell them to do based on the answer they've given you. You want to make sure that whatever any person that you ask that question to says, the next stage or what we do with that choice that they've made is this.
That's it. And so you're always looking like you're directly going down the same route every time. The worst equivocate in the world is when you go, okay, this is via process of elimination, Mark. Name 2 of those for me.
Insects and places.
Okay, so You chose these two categories.
Right.
Out of it was the four, wasn't it? It just sort of looks like that were never the intended route. You're changing your path.
You don't want to be thinking.
Whereas if you just name those two again, I go and just name any two of those.
Places and insects.
And that's what you chose out of those four. So where's places, where's insects?
Places, insects.
So imagine you're holding these categories. Now, Mark could have chose any of these. Just hand me one of those, Mark. And if you'd have chose differently, this would have been different. That's gone. That leaves one in your hands. Which one is it that you're holding?
Insects.
It's a free choice. Notice how it's very difficult when there's nobody here because there's nothing to bounce off. So that might seem really... But when there's people here and they're saying stuff to you and you're talking and you can hand things to somebody and you're not looking, and
it's also the fact that there are people there is also a natural convincer that you weren't looking and couldn't see which one was handed
that's
to
it,
you.
because you're talking at the same time to them. So what happens if you're on your own? Because you might be doing this one-on-one. You can literally use the old playing card line. So which one's places, which is insects?
Places, insects.
So just hand one to me. Good. Now, you've kept one for yourself there. You give one to me. I'm going to just put that over there. Which one did you keep for yourself?
Insects.
It's the old playing card thing when you come down to two. Michael Murray has a wonderful principle called the tombola principle.
Great.
And the tombola principle is worth finding.
All of Michael's material is worth finding.
It is. Look for it. I mean, I share it, and I don't want you thinking I'm just mentioning things that you can't do, you can't see, you can't play with. But it's important to find that, because you'll find a world of information that you didn't know existed, and it'll be really, really good information for you. So do you have any questions, Mark, on that bit of the process?
I think, there's one thing to point out is right at the end there, you're purposely pretending like you don't know which one I've remained.
Good point.
You asking me, you're going, so which one does that leave you with? As if you don't know. Even though you do know it's insects and you've controlled the outcome for it to be insects, it's really, really, really helps to strengthen it. And it's really key to make out that you haven't got a clue which one's left in their hand.
100%, because you'll be tempted when you've done equivocate to do this. Hand me one of those. So we'll put that over there. That leaves you with insects.
Yeah.
And that's the way that equivocate normally goes.
And
You're the one
people
telling.
do that because they're nervous that the other person hasn't followed track, or that they're going to think they've handed off insects. And I think that people do it out of nervousness. But again, this is something that flags up big red flags for the fact that you are using some sort of equivocal technique. So I think,
and that's it. But you framed it, because you've said so. Places, insects. Imagine holding these. Now give one to me.
Yeah.
Good. So we'll put that over there. That leaves you with
insects.
Perfect. It's a free choice.
Yeah.
Right. This is if it's one-on-one. Let's say Mark had handed me insects. So you have places and insects. Just hand one to me. So this is the one that you've chosen. This is insects. See how just seamless it goes. It's not bumpy. Yeah. Right. One thing I need to press, and I'm going to press this because I realise that you can't use that peripheral force twice in a row.
Earlier you mentioned a little bit about not using the same stage in equivocate twice in a row, and I don't know, it's probably going to come up a little bit later on, but this did seem like a good break point in the filming for us to talk about that.
Yeah, so the reason is that you might end up with two different outcomes, and I've learned this the hard way. In fact, just last night we were watching a lecture and they broke this rule, and they went on to say how proud they was of the fact that this stage were in there where they had a completely free choice, and you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, so like one round it's okay, take these and let's discard a couple of them, put them face down, and then in the next round it's put a couple in my hand face down. Okay, well, we're going to use these.
Yeah.
As soon as you've conditioned your audience to know that when they turn them face down and they're getting put out of the way, that's where it should always be. It shouldn't be, okay, now you've put 4 face down and call them discards and then go, let's just separate these two and let's decide which ones we want to bring back. It should never be like that. And the reason that happens is because you're using the same way to reduce or funnel the information down to one thing.
I see it too much.
It happens a lot, and there's there is an argument that frequents forums where they say, oh, it should always seem like it's the same process to reduce down. Now, I don't think that's the case. What I think you can do is you could say, I'm going to have you making a series of random decisions in different ways, and if you press the point that you're going to be doing that and paint it red, it doesn't seem like there's a problem there.
Yeah, that's a good bit of advice. That
And that, I think the painting it red is one of the best things I ever learned from Banachek's books, and I think it's not utilised enough. If there's something that's strange in a routine, and there's something that's weird, then find a way to make it a feature and find a way to make it something that's important.
Yeah.
So, let's say, for example...
You may as well mention it, because if it's going to be noticed...
That's it, and if
be
you
in
mention
control of it, you own it then.
That's it. If you mention it, it doesn't seem like a problem. Let's say, for example, I know that I've got to pick up a pad to pick a piece of information, and it's in the weirdest place in the middle of a routine. If I said to you, certain points during what I'm about to show you, I'm going to get flashes of inspiration and a really bad memory. So what happens is at some points I need to refer back to these to know exactly how you think. So I'm just going to be making random notes and scribbling. Don't you worry about that for now. And you painted it red. If you pick a pad up and just start writing something, people are just going to go, he's just making notes because his memory's terrible.
Yeah.
Now that's a pretty bad example, but painting something red is imperative. But back to the question you asked me, because I'm going to go too far off topic.
Yeah.
You don't want to use the same tool twice, and I'll give you an example why. Let's say you use the peripheral force, which we just discussed a few seconds ago in depth, and the first time they hand you, let's say they've got two categories, and you know that these two categories, one of them is the category you want. So let's say it's insect and places. One of them is the category you want and one's not. So you're looking away, and you see them come towards you with the insect category. So you go, and whatever this is, we'll use. Which category did you just hand me? Insects. Perfect. And then it comes to the next category, and you're down to a bee and a spider. And you turn away and you go, hand me one of these. And then they hand you the bee.
Yeah.
At that point, you go, okay, well, we'll just get rid of that one. It's totally different to what happened the second
Very
ago.
jarring, yeah.
So it doesn't seem like it's right. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't, when you get better at this stuff, make rough changes. Like, let's say, for example, that the heat of the moment gets the better of you and you do use the same force twice just because you've had a brain fart and you're not thinking. And you notice that the spectators handed you the bee the second time round. You can say, I don't know what that is, but just for fun, just to throw a spanner in the works, change this one for the one that you've got. And this is the one that I've got now is the one we'll use. What's this one?
Yeah.
Do you know, like, if you mess up, you can always say, just to throw, because then it looks like you're intending to use this one, the bee. You were intending to use it, and then the last second you've gone, you don't know it's the bee, and you've gone, oh, you know what, let's throw a spanner in the works. Just last second, change this one for the one that you've got, and whichever one you're giving me now is the one we're going to use.
Yeah. Or something thematically in that would be, like, hand it to you, and you'd be like, and you drop it, you go, I don't know if that was the bee or the spider that you handed me, either bit me or stung me, but what one are you still holding on to? What do you have now?
That's it. You're painting that moment red.
Yeah.
And that's your escape out of there. That's great. And that's what we're saying is we recommend not using the same tool twice. If you're backed into a corner, sometimes you might need to. It's not a very good thing because the outcome could be different. But look what we did. We painted it red. And we painted that moment red so it didn't seem obscure. And I like that little thing of just dropping it, There is a technique that Mark's about to share that uses marked billets. Now, if you don't know what a marked billet is, it's just some sort of identifying mark on the back of a business card or the back. Let's say you've got blank information and one of them says bee, one says spider. You can differentiate them without having to look at the word bee and spider because it's got some identifying mark. Now, Mark, do you want to go into a little bit of detail on that?
I mean, say what you're using is blank white billets. One of them could have a tiny little pencil mark on the back, so you'd know which it was. And when I say the back, I mean the side that the information isn't written on by the spectator in this case. They would write down bee on the one, the spider on the other. And as long as you've got some way of identifying the back of one of them, as I say, it could be a pencil dot in the corner. It could be a slightly dog-eared corner on one of them. It could even be a nail nick, as we call it. And a nail nick is where you take a nail, normally a thumbnail, and you dig it into the side of the billet like this. And not so hard, but just enough so that you've got an identifying mark on it. And that will allow you to know which of those two billets is which. If you've using some of the techniques that we talked about later on, like pen reading, for example, if I was to hand the person the nail nicked billet and then say to them, write one of your choices down on there, and they do, and now I know that you've written B on there. I now know the one with the mark on it is the B, and then when I hand you the other one, I know that spider is going to be written on there. So now I've got a way of identifying which those two are. The spectator has no idea that I know which of those two it is.
And that's it. And they can mix them as much as they want now, and you're going to be golden.
Yeah,
That's
and you're kind of in the same situation as the peripheral choice, because they don't know there's any way you know either of these are. They won't know which either of them are, perhaps, if you want to do a completely random choice, or they can be looking at them and they can put one of them down, or they can fold one of them.
In that time, you know, like if you take one, if it's the one that you want to use, you could say, this is the one that we're going to use, what is it? And if it's not, you can always just tear it without saying anything and put the pieces in your pocket or throw them off to the side, because it seemingly doesn't seem like you know, right? If you're using a business card with numbers on it, telephone numbers or your information, you know, X, Y, Z, magician, mentalist, hypnotist, whatever, you can always put like a little dot in the, let's say it's the numbers, every telephone number in England starts with 07, but in there there's going to be some code.
Any number or letter where there's a complete sort of ring inside incorporated in that number or letter.
Just sharpie it in, you know?
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do to mark a billet is that you can get them to give you the information without knowing that they've given you it. So let's say, for example, you give them one business card. It's not really marking, this is visual marking. It's like it's almost like audience polling. You could say just, you were down to two choices. You said the spider and the bee. So just write spider on that one, bee on that one. And when you take them back, you can just keep track of where it is. That's visual marking, marking the position. And you can always say, well, mix these so that you don't know which one's which and I don't. And then say you're happy they're mixed. And you can then put them down on the table in front of them and say, move them around as much as you want. And it's just follow the cup game, they follow the shell, you know. And
so only dealing with two. It's quite easy.
That's it, yeah. So
other things that we could use instead of billets could be like beer mats, for example.
Yeah, if you had a beer mat and it had like white writing on it, what you can do is you can just casually like lick your finger and touch the writing that's white, and what it'll look like is a little watermark on it. But to anybody who sees a beer mat with a watermark on it, they're just going to assume that it's had a drink on it.
No one's going to notice it. This is the thing. They don't know them. They don't notice the markings because they're not looking for them. And even if they did notice something on there, they wouldn't think that you knew what it was or you were using it as part of your method or technique or anything.
I mean,
like
at this
that.
point in a routine, it doesn't even make sense to use a marked card. It's not something that, it's not like it's a card game where they're choosing a card. You already know the two choices.
Yeah.
So to them, it's not even going to be something that enters their head.
Yeah.
But just to roll on, like I say, we did keep talking about this equivoque process long after the sun had gone down. Now, the reason that we stopped filming in the daytime in Spain is because the crickets were going absolutely mad.
Yeah.
Like, they were going so mad that the noise, if you ever hear the buzzing in the background in that last section, they're crickets, they're families of crickets that are going wild, and it just got too loud, so we just stopped and we went on with his day and then came back to it. So let's roll into the section where the sun's gone down behind the horizon.
I mean, another option is, where are we? King of Diamonds. So King of Diamonds is our card we want. And you see them start moving towards with the King of Diamonds. You say, I want you to choose one of those two cards in your hand and put it into the box. So say you see me coming with this one, which is the fourth card. King of Diamonds goes into the box. Now you can say, so that's the card you've chosen. That's isolated. That's safe. Whereas if you, out of your peripheral vision, you see him moving across with this one, putting it into the box, you instantly
Get the
rest of them, put it in there. So this is a discard process. But you're not saying it, you're not having to say anything out loud, it's just, obviously that's what's happened. And you say, so that's left you with one card remaining in front of you. Let's have a look what it is. King of Diamonds. So
it's a really lovely little thing. Like I say, these ideas, me and Mark, I mean, we don't want to go off too much because me and Mark could sit here and over the years, we've come up with so many versions of these types of things that we could sit and just jam more and more. But this is really brilliant because it looks like you were always intending to put the rest of the cards in the box.
And you've told them to put the card, whichever one, put one of them away in the box.
That's great. It's really, really nice. Another little interesting subtlety that you can use, and this I always attribute to Cal Scott. Now, I know that Luch released a version of this in the Black Project, is there's a coin spin that you can do.
Yeah.
And you have to find it, but basically it enables you to be able to make a coin land whichever side up you want when the spectator's banging the hand down on the top of it. So if you framed one of them as heads and one of them as tails, you can force the outcome of the coin spin to land a certain way up. Now, I really hate mentioning this stuff because when I go away, I always feel that people are going to think to themselves, oh, well, they could have just told us. There's certain things I can't tell you, but I can guide you towards because they're not my property. And without reaching out to the artist and asking them, I'd hate to include it and then get myself in a bother later on. You know, but if you look up Carl Scott, if you message Carl Scott's a wonderful mentalist.
Oh, he's one of the cleverest people that we have in the game, and he's one of the nicest people as well.
He's really lovely. And what it enables is just an absolute brilliant force of a 50-50.
So after that filming that night, the next morning, Pete and I were having breakfast, and there was an idea that I'd been mulling over in the evening, and we hadn't actually got it on camera while we were in Spain, but I thought we'd talk about it now. And it's at this point when you're down to the 2 outs, and let's say you're in a situation where you've got Spider written on a beer mat, and that's predicted over here somewhere.
And it's hidden away in plain
It's hidden,
sight.
no one knows it's there. You haven't drawn attention. And remember, in this routine, this is kind of dressed up as a memory test rather than it being any prediction. You haven't said, I'm predicting something, and then you go into the routine. So that's off there as prediction. My next idea is that you pull out a billet, and on the back of this billet, hidden, is written, you will change your mind. Or sorry, you will not change your mind, is written on the back of the billet. They don't get to see that. Then on the back, on the other side of the billet, the blank side of the billet now, you write, you have 10 seconds to make your decision. You put it down on the table face up, so it just says you have 10 seconds to make your decision. And you say, you have 10 seconds to make your decision. Your decision is, do you want to change your mind? So say they're on the B at the moment. Do you want to change your mind? Whatever they say at the end. If they say yes, I want to change your mind, you say, and what are you changing to? They say Spider. You then reveal your beer mat. Or if they say, no, I don't want to change your mind, you can then turn over this card and show on the back that you predicted.
And emit the spider.
And you don't even refer to the spider.
And what's really great about that is, let's say, for example, you're just pushing somebody and you're pushing somebody, and then you've turned it over and it says, you will not change your mind. And you just sit smirking, you say, you know, getting to know you as a person through all the choices that you're making, it's going to be so easy. And then you start to move into the next thing. And then just as you're starting to move into the next thing, you say, just so I know a little bit more about you, if you knew that I'd predicted that you wouldn't change your mind, knowing that I know that you wouldn't change, would you throw a spanner in the works and change at the last second knowing that? And they go, yes or no, because now it's giving you another chance at the spider. And
right.
If they go, yes, and I go, and if you did change from the B, what would you be on? Spider. Not only did I predict that you wouldn't change your mind the first time I asked, I also wrote down this, and now you can reveal that. If they say no, you say, okay, perfect, that tells me everything I need to know about you, which is the get out of jail free card to move you into your next routine. Now, you just said something a second ago that I think is a really important thing to bring back up, but I need you to remind me of what it is that you were just saying. So you said we've come down to this 50-50 and you've got this multiple out on the back side.
Yeah.
You know, you will not change your mind and you place it down. Oh, that's it. I know what we were talking about. Hidden in plain sight. Mm-hmm. We are going to discuss that in depth, but hidden in plain sight is a massively big way to hide psychological forces. And we discuss it in depth, but remember that HIPS, hidden in plain sight. And HIPS were the acronym that Carl Scott created, who again gets another mention on here, great guy. But yeah, the hidden in plain sight is such a very important thing for you to make note of in your head, because it could be anywhere. You could have wrote it on the back of a bottle, you could have wrote it, you know, under a beer mat, you could just hide it right there in front of them. It could even be a sentence that's, again, whilst I was speaking about acronyms, it just popped into my head. Let's say that you wanted to force a spider. You know, you could have them read this paragraph and each letter of the first line starts with the first letters like S-P-I-D-E-R.
Yeah.
So now when they read through it, you say, okay, this is going to play an important part later on. Just read it, sign the bottom of it to say that you understand it, and put it into your pocket. You know, and it could be something like sometimes people. Do you know what I mean? Like, and now when they've read that, they've signed off on it, and you point out the first letter of each of the things. It just gives you a little safety net. But yeah,
great.
Let's jump back into this.
Imagine that you were down to a 50-50 and you nail nicked one of the billets and you said, write the word spider on that and the word fly, mix these up.
Yeah.
And now take one of these and just put it face down on the table. You look at the marking if it's spider and saying, this is the one that we're going to work with. If they put the one that's not nail nicked down on the table, you tear it up. I say, I don't even know what you chose there. that's left you with one of those.
Yeah.
And you can completely force the outcome of a 50-50 based on the nail nick and the little billet thing.
Yeah.
So again, do you see, this is the gold, because me and Mark are jam and we do this all day long. Like Mark will springboard from something, I'll springboard from something else. I want you to finish off with one point, Mark, that you made yesterday that I didn't know about. I do something during the performance.
Right, yeah.
And Mark noticed it and I'd never noticed it.
Yeah, so something I don't know if it works, if it actually works. Psychologically, I can see it might and it would, and it seems to help me with my hit rate. And that's when you're talking about the insects, you're down to the category of insects. You go, name some insects for me, like a bug or a creepy crawly. And you do this thing with your hand when you say creepy crawly. And I copied you, and I didn't, and it turns out that you weren't aware that you were doing it.
Yeah, I didn't even know I was doing it.
And it's this gesture of this when you say creepy crawly, and you're kind of making a spider shape with your hand. And I don't know if it really helps the hit rate or not, but you do it, I do it, and we're hitting this pretty solidly.
So what we're about to jump into now is one of the times where Mark and I do things slightly differently. And it's a very rare occasion that Mark and I have completely different ways to do something, but with psychological forces, what you're going to find is that that's commonplace.
Yeah, what works for you or what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa.
You know, and we do talk about that, but I think it's important to point out that if you're finding a different outcome comes up time and time and time again, instead of beating yourself up and trying to fix the scripting to get the outcome that we get, just change it. If you notice, for example, someone's picking brand every time and then they're picking Ford every single time, instead of going for the Spider Force, just keep doing what you're doing.
You've stumbled upon some gold.
That's it, you know, and that's the thing. And Mark's practiced this and gone out and performed it a lot, and he's about to talk to you about the way that he does this. So let's jump into that.
And I know that you do it differently to me, and I can explain why I do it the way I do it, and you can explain the reasons as why you do it where you do. And my way works for me, your way works for you, and probably wouldn't be vice versa, that my way would work for you and your way possibly wouldn't work so well for me either. And that's the same for you. So you might need to adapt this, but we can only talk about what works for us and why we think it works for us. You put insects as the second category you name. You say places, insects, and you do this slight emphasis. You look at them when you say insects as a hope to try and increase the hit rate on the insect category. I put insects as the first one. And the reason I think that works for me is I think that as you frame this as a memory test, I think that the spectator gets into this psychology and this thought that they're going to try and remember the things you say. And it's most likely that if they are successful in remembering all the categories you say, when they repeat them back to you, they're going to repeat them back in the correct order. So when you ask them to name one of the categories, the first one they're likely to name is the first one that you said to them. So I tend to see that works, and I get insects named when I say to them, so name one of those categories for me. And they name insects, because they're expecting me to ask them to name all 5 of them, which I don't have to do, and I don't go into, because if they name insects out the bat, then I take it as a hit, and we don't even mention the fact that this memory test would have carried on or anything like that.
It disappears at that point.
Yeah, you're done, you're golden. And I think that there are other similarities with other routines like think, stop, force, like the old think, stop, force. For me, I tend to force the card in the 8th position. You pretty much can probably force any card anywhere, but generally, where are you aiming for on the single stop?
7.
Right.
And when I'm doing, and if I'm doing in their hands, it's always 5 cards.
Yeah.
So, but I've seen it where people have done it and they do 7 cards, 8 cards.
Yeah.
You know.
So I mean, imagine reading that in the book, Think, Stop, Force, and then trying it and thinking that you're missing because they always stop you on the 9th card. Well, this is great. This is brilliant. If you're able to get people to always stop you on the 9th card, now that's the one that works for you. Stick with it.
Do you know what? It's funny you say that. I had an email. I'm not going to name who it is, but from somebody in India. And they'd bought a book off me. I'd sent it over there, and they said, "Sir, I'm very disappointed in the book that you sent me." And they were doing a psychological force from one of my older works, and it might have been the beach force. It was a long time ago I got this email, but they said, "Oh, I keep getting every time I do this a waterfall with rocks. It's not forcing the beach."
Great.
And I thought, well, okay, well, why?
High five. That's
perfect.
amazing. Yeah.
And you might think that me and Mark are out of our head saying it's perfect that I said it with the beach, and they always change the prediction to waterfall and beach, because something you're doing and saying is forcing that every time. So why use the beach?
Yeah.
Right? You know, so if you find that the first position works for you, great. If you find the second position works for you, if you find the fourth position, let's say that you're doing this and somebody keeps choosing time all the time, times, swap those categories around and see if they keep picking insects, because whatever you're saying or the way that you're speaking, the intonation, the pace that you're speaking at, might be the thing that's forcing that category.
Right, and even if switching the categories order, they're still naming times, for example, or change the routine. Do something based on
times.
time.
That's it.
I mean, you've stumbled on something great if you're able to force people to think of a category. Stumbled on something great, capitalise on it, and work a routine around
that. That's it. So don't ever look at a psychological force as a fail. What me and Mark have done is, yes, we've talked for about 30 minutes on the spider force alone. But when you look at it, it's not the spider force alone. You've learned about the peripheral forces. You've learned about a good equivoque process and how to change the process each time. You've learned that if this seems too difficult and somebody doesn't remember it, to seamlessly move into your billet peak. You've learned about how to adapt to situations that come up naturally. You've learned that if psychological forces don't work the way that they're written or the way that you've seen them, but you're always coming up with a common denominator, to change your force to that common denominator. You've learned the outs with the marked billets. You've learned the out that Mark says, where it says you will not change your mind, and that's a hidden out. And we'll talk about hidden predictions and outs later if you don't mind. We'll have a little jam on that.
Yeah.
You've learned how to deal with anything that gets thrown at you during this routine. And that's why we couldn't just monotonously sit down and go, here's the performance, here's the explanation. Because these little jam sessions, I'd not thought about using the nail nick and the 2 billets.
Yeah.
If that were 2 beer mats in a bar, how perfect would that be?
They're naturally marked anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
One
That's
of them
it.
would be slightly scuffed in a corner or something.
That's it. You know what I mean? This is it. So along the way, we want to jam it like this, because then you're getting the extra touches that we wouldn't usually think about. Because if we wrote down a list of things that we wanted to talk about, we'd stick to that list and that'd be it. So I really hope that you can see the value in these sessions where we just go off on a tangent.
Just for completeness, sorry to interrupt you there.
See?
But
I like it.
But can you go back and explain why you put insects as your second category,
Yes.
and how you try and up your hit rate on that?
Okay. So I call it potent placement. I'm not asking for them, I'm going to have to jump off to another force that's on this set. I have something called the Not Ed Marlowe snap change. And the idea is, if you've watched the Not Ed Marlowe snap change, I'm having them cycle through the suits. So please watch that back to see what I'm talking about. But the word cycle there were really important, because it meant they stuck in that order and just cycle round them. And I found that when I was doing this, I frame it like a memory test. I don't try to push the fact that this is a memory test. I say, I just want to see how good your memory is. Now, and then when I go, name one of those back to me. And maybe it's because I do this. And I go, just name one of those back to me, which suggests to name any one of them without me saying. Like if I said to you, so just name something.
Tree.
Now, you didn't say a zebra, or you didn't say a giraffe, because this sort of implies name something you can see.
Right.
But I'm not saying name something you can see.
Yeah.
So I think that this little action, emotion me saying name one of them.
Yeah. I mean, you could even reframe that afterwards. And you remember at the beginning, I pointed over there and asked you to imagine seeing anything, and you said a tree.
Yeah. And it could have been anything.
You've reframed it as I asked you to imagine seeing anything.
That's it, and that's a tiny little thing, but I bet you'd be able to work some out. 5-10 minutes of us jamming on that, I bet we could come up with something great.
Yeah.
But because I'm doing that, and I go, so just name any one of those, and I do this, and I think what happens is, it sort of suggests name them in any order, or name one of them. And because I've placed that in the second position, and then I've rushed, so I go, it could be places, insects, times, names, numbers, boom, 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 letters or brands. It sort of makes you feel, or I think it makes you feel, again, scientifically, I can't really explain this, but I'm telling you what I surmise, is that, he wants me to go for numbers, he wants me to go for brands, so I'm going to go a little bit further back. The first one's too obvious now. What were the ones that he said when he sped those up?
Yeah.
And the only one that stands out as key is insect. And so that's why they tend to go for that category. And I found that, for me, it works really well. It's just, it could be places, insects, times, names, numbers, letters, or brands. And I found that that's the key to getting a high hit rate. And that you've seen a couple of the performances, you know, it usually is as clean as that.
So one thing that I've done is made a series of little notes to myself to remind me of things that I'm going to talk about in the overview. And of course, some of these notes are going to be put into the perfect place where they fit perfectly, and other times I'm going to be shoehorning something in there because it doesn't exist within the footage that we've created. It were just little things that I had thoughts about maybe when I were driving back from the trip. And one of the things that I thought were great, and you might like this, is almost a reverse pull, right? And this is something that I used for years when I was doing card forces, but I never thought about applying it to something like this. So imagine I said to you, we're going to name some insects. So we do, and we get 5 insects, which is a lot to equivocate back down from, being that now we've already done this big process where we've already equivocated down from, say, a number. If it's seamless and it just insects, perfect, and now there's 5, it's not so bad. But what I thought were great is if I turn to you and say, now, you're going to be the judge, and I look around like I'm going to pick, you're going to be the judge. So you name one of these insects. So now what happens is that you will name, if you name a spider, I go perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
You've got another chance for a hit there. Yeah.
That's it. If not, I go good. And I said you're going to be the judge. You name an insect, you name one, you name one. Or I get everybody to think of one at the same time. That's it. That's what note it was. Get everybody to think of one at the same time. And I say, you're going to be the judge in this. What insect are you thinking of? An
ant.
An ant. And now I'd say, now we'll go with everybody else. Don't change your mind, I'm intrigued. Now, if the majority is that most people at the table have thought of spider, what I'll say to you is, I said that you were the judge. Can you just go around and count up? And you could be the one for everybody else, what the majority vote is at the table.
Yeah.
So now you're the judge of the majority vote. So if it's hit, I said you're the judge, you're going to be the person that is picking for everybody else. Now, let's say, for example, that the majority vote spider, which psychologically it is going to be. You get that and you say, what's the majority vote? So the entire table have decided what. If it's not now, what I say is, I did say you were going to be the judge, which means you're going to get to pick who we're working with.
Yeah.
And now what you do is the equivocate process with a group, and you pretend you've not heard what they said, so you miscall it, which is something else that we talk about later on. But let's say this person picked spider. At the end I go, and you picked a grasshopper, right? Or whatever, one of the other ones. And they go, no. I named a spider. It's okay, a spider. And it allows you to allow your audience to think that you in some way misheard what they'd said. Because the equivocate process is no longer now about, it's when you've got a series of invisible pieces of information that they're reducing down on, that information is the prominent thing that's being judged. It's like that's the thing that the focal point's on. Whereas when you're breaking it into people like this and they're selecting which people to work with and which not, it's no longer about the information, but it's more about the people.
So and another thing here that I think would be nice is if there's some random ones named, say the majority wasn't spider or there were 5 different ones named, you can then ask the judge to, so you're going to select what we'll use from this, so just select somebody and they point at one person. If they point at the person who chose spider, you're good. If they don't point at the person that chose spider, you then say, and another one. And now you see if they, so you're doing this equivocate process now with this one person, but you're...
That's it, it's the group. And if they do point at them, so you're giving yourself one chance that they're going to pick it, another chance that the majority is going to pick it, another chance that that person's going to be first picked, and you can eliminate one of these people. You could turn and let's say that you didn't want them to pick Andy over here, and you went like, for example, Andy went for, what did you go for? If you were to pick Andy, that's where it is that we'd be working with. Well, now by mentioning him, you've limited via inclusion. So you've reduced it down again. And you've just opened yourself up 3 chances there. You know, this, the majority or that.
It's very good,
without anybody seeing. Sometimes what's going to happen is that you're going to get down to 2 things and you're going to miss at the last second. You're going to miss at the last second. In this routine, let them win. There's a reason that I let them win, is because if I've got it down to B and spider, and I've said to them, you could have gone for places, Bradford, Germany, Leeds, Spain, anywhere in the world. You could have gone for names, any one of our names at this table or elsewhere. And I go through all those things and I reopen it right back up. And I say, you know what? I was so sure you were going to change your mind at the last second. But it doesn't matter because we still got you to the category. We still got you very close to it. You were down to a 50-50. I'd like to play another game with you if that's all right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it becomes a fun game. You know, the amount of times when I were a kid, I'd just sit there with a pack of cards and me and my brother would just cut to see who'd get the highest card. It's the most simple game on the planet, but it's a game and it's fun. And I always sort of feel a bit dead inside when I read on the forums that people say, I hate mentalism, that's like a game. Well, that's what, it should be fun. It should be exciting for people, you know? And so if I'm close, sometimes I just out and out take the miss. If it's just a 50, because there's so many choices in a routine like this, it completely makes sense, you know?
I don't mind turning it over and being one out. I really don't. I say, oh, you know, just at the last second there, I just wanted to see if I could nudge you. But you still get a good reaction because you were still down to the spider and the fly. They could have chose places, could have chose names, could have chose numbers, could have chose this.
Yeah.
And you go, right at the last second, it's taught me this. And now you go, but guess what? This were never about the spider or the fly. It were never about the insect. It were never about any of that. It wasn't even about a memory test. It were about seeing how you behaved under pressure. It were about seeing how your brain reacts to certain situations, whether you're going to change your mind, whether you're not, your patience levels, how you select stuff. You want me to prove it? And now you can move into a selection of a card,
this coin, put it behind
your back, which hand, whatever. Yeah. And now it all seems like a gauging process where you're profiling the person. And mentalism lacks in that department, I feel. It's always a case of this. Mark, think of any playing card. You're thinking of the 7 of clubs, correct? Yeah. It's always that. It's never a case of, okay, Mark, this isn't going to make any sense to you, but do you prefer sunny days or rainy days?
Sunny days.
Which emotion do you feel is a better emotion to apply in life? Empathy or thought, determination? Thought. Okay, it's great because they were a difficult one, right? If I said to you that you had a series of restaurants on a street, are you the sort of person that would just go in the first restaurant without looking at the rest of them, or would you walk up and down the street and would you decide to look at each menu, each restaurant before you went into one of them? Or would you just go with the first one you see? What would you do?
I'd look at them all.
You'd look at them all. And do you feel, based on probability, you'd usually stop at the beginning, the end, or somewhere in the centre?
Probably somewhere in the centre.
Okay. So now let's say that I forced now a black card, or a red card, sorry. A red card, the diamond, 6 or 7 of diamonds. And I get you to look at it and think about it. Well, now I can say to you, do you remember I said to you, it didn't seem like anything, but I asked you if you preferred sunny days or rainy days. Well, there's warm cards and cold cards. You decided on a warm card. You also decided on not a heart. You decided on the analytical card, which had been the diamond. You didn't go for an ace or a 10 or any. You went for somewhere in between. And now you can sort of frame up the choices afterwards. It's a very shitty routine. Don't use it. Yeah. But what I'm doing is just made an example up on the spot to point how that framework can make the next bit seem plausible. Yeah. And let's say you'd picked another card. And then I said to you, I want you to imagine for a second that cards had warm or cold feelings. Black cards are normally cold, red cards are normally warm. Just imagine transmitting to me which one this is. And so you do. And now I say to you, well, it sounds really silly, but do you remember me asking you that question earlier on, whether you preferred the rain or the warmth? And you said to me that you preferred the warmth. Well, all I had to do is look at you to gauge how you felt about the card that you were holding. And I just used the cues that you gave me earlier on to know now that you're holding a black card. The question about the restaurant seemed ridiculous, but in hindsight, when we look at it like this, and that little profiling section there,
yeah, almost like a reading.
That's it. You can now offset it using, again, equivocate, not equivocate like to force the card, but equivocate in the statements that you're making to know exactly how to end the routine, and the profiling is always better.
So there's been a famous mentalist that's been on our screens a lot over the last 10, 20 years. And there's been some really, really clever uses of what appeared to be psychological influence. And there might have been some other things going on here. And we thought it'd be good to sort of speak about that.
Yeah, so most mentalists in the past, and it's not synonymous with this one person, they've used pseudo-explanations to explain away the things that they do. Now, usually, and it's not in this person's case, usually it's because the person feels guilty about the fact that they're not doing what they say they're doing. Whereas in this person's case, so clever, so clever
Yeah.
that people actually really believed the pseudo explanations, and it made it credible. And what it taught me is that sometimes when people are going to believe that you're doing a certain thing, you might as well let them think you're doing it. So, for example, if you're sat with somebody who believes you're a psychic, no matter what you say or no matter what you do, they're always going to believe you're a psychic. So if you sit there and start to spiel off that it's body language and it's this and it's not psychic, the person's just going to entertain you and go, yeah, all right. But they're going to leave thinking you're a liar and you're not credible. If the person believes you that you're using body language and you're telling them that you're a psychic, the person's just going to think you're a liar. So the one aim that you've set out to achieve, that air of credibility, that this is credible, falls flat based on the fact that you're not listening to what your spectator expects you to be. So sometimes it's nice to have pseudo explanations. And what we're about to jump into is a tiny throwaway effect. It's a silly little thing, really. It's not meant to be all that spectacular, but it served me so well when people say to me, oh, you're influencing using body language. And I say, most people don't catch that.
Yeah.
Like most people, because it gives them a credit.
Yeah.
Most people don't catch that. It's good that you've seen it. But
I really like that.
I'll explain how it works. And now I'll give you a little peek behind the scenes so that you can see exactly how I do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then I'll roll into what you're about to see, which is only a silly little throwaway thing. But because they've already given you credit for all the big things that you've done, now when you're seemingly explaining it, well, of course you're going to explain something that's foundational, like learning ABCs.
Yeah.
So it just throws it away and you go, of course I'm doing that, but on a much bigger scale with everything else. And now when they walk away, you're credible and they feel nice that you compliment them on the fact that they know stuff.
And it makes them stop trying to, if there was any part of them that was trying to work out method or think about it, because you've given them so much credit and you've actually said, oh, you're actually realising or noticing things a lot of people that other people don't notice. They're not going to start looking for anything else now, and they're happy and they feel good. You've complimented them, and they
just enjoy it from that point. And that's
very, very nice touch. Yeah.
So, Mark, what I need you to do is, again, forget any suggestions I'm throwing at you. Genuinely have the freedom of choice to go for any number you want, and all I need you to do is name the first number that pops in your head now.
3.
Do you remember back to me touching your arm? Do you remember me saying you genuinely have the freedom of choice? Freedom of choice to choose any number you want. And that's exactly why you went for it. I think you're going to be perfect for this. Now, play that statement back. It's a really good statement because it covers every single outcome, right? What I need you to do is, and again, wait a second, before we get into this, you have to forget any suggestions that I'm throwing at you. You have the freedom of choice to go for any number. What I need you to do is just name one number now. And if Mark had said to me a different number, so just name one at random, let's say I did it again, what I need you to do, and again, forget any suggestions I'm throwing at you, genuinely have the freedom of choice to go for any number you want. Name the first number that pops in your head now.
4.
Remember me touching your arm and saying, forget. And I just lie about the moment I touched you on the arm because you remember it. And if Mark had said 7, I go, do you remember me saying what I need you to do? And at the end, I went like this. What's 2 and 5? 7. Play that sentence back because you can recreate any number. If they'd have said 27, you could have used 27. If they'd have said 9, forget. And then 5, 4 and 5 is 9. And it's a nice little prelude to an effect, but I think it's a very quick and important one because it really rounds things off.
It's good. The reframe is really key there.
That's it.
You're lying about the time that you touched them, and I think that's a real key to it because you're claiming that you touched them on whatever number they've named now. When you're saying, if they name number 4, you're saying, and I touched you on the arm and said, forget.
And they remember the touch, just don't remember the sentence that you applied at that point.
Because they're concentrating on the things you're saying, and they don't remember specifically at what point the touch happened, but they will remember the touch. So you're just reframing it and lying about when that happens.
It's just a tiny throwaway thing that you get for free.
So I thought this might be a good point to interject. And instead of just pressing play on a performance and you're watching it start to finish, I thought it might be more fun if I play the game with you and you pick up on a piece of information, then I'll roll the video. And if the gentleman in the video happens to go for the same piece of information you're thinking of, you know just how potent this is. Now, if you don't go for that piece of information, it really doesn't matter because when you watch the explanations, you'll see how I just sort of safeguard myself and explain it away. And you can go back to the Spider Force, watch the explanations there, and you'll know exactly what tools you need in order to up your hit rate. So if you want to play, it's really simple. If you're sat down, sit with your feet flat on the floor. If you're stood up, ignore everything else around you and just focus on the device that you're watching this on. You really need to listen to me, and if you don't listen, this definitely won't work. What I want you to do is take a deep breath in and slowly let that breath out. And as you're letting that breath out, take one of your hands and place it palm toward the sky, just like this. I want you to let your hand relax as you're breathing in and out. And in a moment when I snap my fingers, I want you to close your eyes. And again, if you don't close your eyes, this definitely won't work. So when I snap my fingers, close your eyes and keep your eyes closed. Don't open your eyes until I tell you. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to imagine something in your hand. And when I do that, I don't want you to go for, say, a remote control or a mobile phone, nothing technological. It's going to be something more organic. I want you to focus on the shape and the colour of this thing. So get something in your head now. Focus on the shape and the colour of this thing, the texture. Think about what this thing is. And when you've got something, then open your eyes. So right now, you're all thinking of something that should be completely random.
Like I say, this is not an exact science, so it's not like it works every time. But I'm going to put this over here so I can't touch it. Take your left hand like this and just put it palm toward the ceiling. So in a moment when I snap my fingers, I want you to close your eyes. So take a deep breath in and just close your eyes down. I want you to ignore everything else that you can hear around you. Don't worry about anybody else in any other part of the bar. Just imagine that the sound of my voice is reverberating around your head. I'm going to take your drink and just put it on the bar. Keep your eyes closed, just so that we don't drop it. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to imagine something in your hand. When I do that, I don't want you to go for, say, a remote control or a mobile phone. Not technological, something more organic than that. So imagine the shape and the colour of this thing, the texture. Get a feel for what this thing is. Really think about its colour. If it's a vibrant colour, imagine it being 10 times more vibrant. Imagine the shape of this. Think about what its purpose is. And when you've got something, slowly open your eyes and drop your hand. Good. Now you could have thought of anything in the world. I didn't restrict you in any way, shape or form. But just tell me what was going on in your head when you were creating that imagery. Did it just seem instant or did it just pop in there? What colour was it?
Red.
Red. What was it? An apple. If you look what I wrote down here, I wrote the word apple. Who am I going to be working with? You hold your hand like this. When I snap my fingers, close your eyes and listen to me. So take a deep breath, close your eyes down. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to imagine something in your hand. I don't want you to make this as obvious as a remote control or a mobile phone. It's going to be more organic. Think of the shape and the colour of this thing, the texture. And when you've got something, open your eyes and drop your hand. It's a fair choice. You could have picked anything. Can I borrow your hand? Don't look what I write. Close your hand. You can keep it here like this. You didn't see that. Out of anything that you could have picked, what did you go for? An apple. Give me some of that. Do you want to show the camera? Show the camera what I wrote. I wrote the word apple. You could have gone for anything, and there is something. I don't want you to go for, say, a mobile phone or a remote control. It's going to be something more organic. So think of something now. Focus on the shape and the colour of this thing, the texture. And when you've got something, slowly open your eyes and drop your hand. When you've got something, open your eyes, drop your hand. Open your eyes. Can I borrow your hand? Happy that's fair. Close your hand. Out of everything you could have gone for in the world, what was the colour of the thing you were thinking of? What was the shape?
Circular.
What was it? An apple. Have a look what I wrote.
Oh my god.
That's it, right? Please don't change your mind. Were you? How good's your memory? Decent. So I'm going to name some categories and all you've got to do is remember them. So it could be places, insects, times, names, numbers, letters or brands. So just name one of those categories back to me.
Insects.
That's a fair choice. There's no way I could have known that that's what you were going to go for. Name like a creepy crawly or a bug.
Spider.
A spider, again a fair choice. So we have an apple and we have a spider. Now let me tell you something you don't know. Before you guys came into this bar, I walked around and I took beer mats and placed them down on the tables, and you guys have put your drinks on top of those beer mats, right? And the two beer mats that are the most important is this one and this one, right? You went for an apple. Take your drink off. Wait a second. Hold on to it. In a moment, you're going to lift that up and you're going to show everybody. You take yours out. Wait a second. Now, if we manage to get both of these, feel free to go nuts. Apple, spider. Put them face up there. Let's have a look.
Stop it.
Fucking cool, right? You could have gone for anything.
So now what you're about to see is an analytical breakdown of the Apple Force. The reasons why I think it works, and Mark's going to talk about hand positions, and we're going to really look in fine detail at the Apple Force.
So Pete, one of the forces you do that I really like is the Apple Force. I think it'd be great if we could include it on the set and talk through how it works, why it works, and I think it'd be a great one to share.
So the Apple Force is really interesting because it were completely out and out inspired by something that Andrew Gerard did.
Yeah,
He's brilliant, isn't he?
genius.
If you don't know Andrew Gerard, he's an incredible thinker. If you haven't seen the process, go and get it. Like, just stop this and run out and get it. And I started playing with it and I thought, I'll change this to suit me. And then I started changing little bits. And all of a sudden what happened is I ended up with a force that were completely different to Andrew's, but it still ended up at the same place. And so I contacted Andrew because I didn't want to work on something that he were going to be upset about if I just released and I shared it with people. And he said, oh no, it's different enough, it's great, you go and you do it. And it's one of those forces that's so interesting because it's so simple. It's very easy to overlook how great this is. The outcome of it usually forces an apple or a ball. So let me talk through how I set it up, how I execute it, and why it works or why I believe it works. Again, there's no scientific data to back up what I think it is, but it just works and that's all that counts.
Yep.
So you get somebody to stand with a hand like this, palm toward the sky, and you tell them to take their time and just relax, and you'll see their fingers start to curl in. And the moment you see their fingers start to curl in like this, you say, I want you to take a deep breath in, keeping your arm like that, and just close your eyes. So they now close their eyes. And then this is the script that I use. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to imagine something in your hand. And when I ask you to imagine something inside your hand, I don't want you to go for something that's technological, like a remote control or a mobile phone. It's going to be something more organic. Think of the shape and the colour of this thing. And when you've got something, slowly open your eyes. So it's taking advantage of three separate psychological forces or three separate psychological principles. One of them is limiting via inclusion, which is a Banachek thing from Psychological Subtleties. Basically, if you include something, a good example is when we did the thing with the 5 of clubs. And again, if this appears before that, then you'll see it somewhere on this set. Like I say, we're not editing this, so we don't know where it's going to end up. But you put it down on the table. When you point out, the value in the suit here, if you to imagine that they popped and changed, because you've included that 5 of clubs, it limits that choice from the selection of choices. So by mentioning, don't think of something that's technological like a remote control or your mobile phone. That's too obvious. Like you're making it seem like you're saying it's too obvious. Think of something more organic. And now, so the word organic means like fresh. It means it's like alive, or it's, do you know what I mean? It's like,
and it does almost take you straight to the fruit and vegetable aisle of a shop or a greengrocer or something like that.
And that's it. And then you're taking advantage now. So that's limiting via inclusion, which is the first psychological principle. The second one is the colour force and the shape force. That's the third one. So you say, think of the colour and the shape of this thing, or think of the shape and the colour. It doesn't matter what order you do those two in. But we talked earlier about the carrot and the shtick, that idea that people go for things if they're pressed very quickly. We talked about it with the piggybacking.
Yeah.
And
that's from Psychological
Subtleties, yeah. So basically, if I, again, just to gild the lily, if I said to you, name a flower, it'd likely be a rose. Name a jungle animal, it'd likely be a lion. When you say to somebody, name a shape, it's usually a circle. When you say name a colour, it's usually, or think of the first colour that pops in your head, it's usually red.
Yeah.
Now, what's really brilliant about this specific force, and the thing that I think is really wonderful, if I said to you to think of something that's organic, that's a triangle and blue, what would you pick?
Nothing.
So now you have to be reverted back
Yeah.
to thinking of something that's easy. Okay, I'll change the colour and the shape. So it almost boxes you back into
Yeah.
that very simple red round ball or apple,
Yeah.
right?
We're now going to look at some additional ideas, and this is just to increase your tool set in psychological forces. So these things could be used to create your own psychological forces, or they could also be utilized in the other ones that we've taught and shown here.
Yeah, so we are still talking about the apple here, but these can be used for anything else.
Now think about this as a concept, because there's something pretty cool about this. You know the game word association? So
Yeah.
they say, yeah, you write down exactly what it is that they're thinking of and you put it down. And now you say to them, I want you to, let's say that now they go through that process and they come up with orange at the end. Well, now you say it's really interesting, because I did say out of everything you could have chose, we were going to find something that were an associate of each other. But if it hits now and it's bang on, you say now what your brain did is it played a game of word association with itself. Subconsciously went through hundreds of different options to arrive at one thing. You said apple. Look, I knew that's where you'd end up.
Great.
So now, by framing it up as that word association, you're covering both bases, which I think is really lovely. It's a very simple force. It's not something to overthink about. It's just follow this script. They've got their eyes closed, their hands relaxed like this.
Do you want to run through it with me?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So just take your hand like this and just hold it out for me like this. Now I see Mark's hands already like that, so it's great. So take a deep breath in, Mark, and just let your eyes close. Now in a moment I'm going to ask you to think of something in your hand. And when I do that, I don't want you to go for, say, a remote control or even your mobile phone. It's too obvious. It's going to be more organic. So think of the shape and the colour of this thing, the texture. Imagine what it is. And when you've got something, slowly open your eyes and drop your hand. It's as quick as that, right? But there's really weirdly, you end up on red round ball or apple or whatever. And it's just a really cute little force, but it's so potent that if you do this to many people at the same time, you can go with the vote of the majority, right? Which is what we were talking about, the polling earlier.
Yeah.
And I hope you don't mind me sidetracking basically about micro, macro. So Bob Cassidy, God, they're racing motorbikes around now. This area is the wildest area.
Jet skis.
Jet skis, oh, maybe, yeah. Water. Make more sense, wouldn't it? Micro and macro are very important key terms. And Bob Cassidy's school of thinking suggested that psychological forces always works better when you use the entire audience. I agree with that to a degree. I really do think that it's the best way to go if you're doing a stage show, because there's something I created that enables you to be able to clean up the mess, right? So, and I'll give you the script as it is. I'm letting you in on how I do this if I'm doing it on stage. I talk about mind reading and influence being like a telephone call. If two people are trying to call each other at the same time, it's impossible for the call to connect.
Yeah.
If one person's trying to call somebody and they're ignoring the phone, it's never going to connect. And likewise, if both people are waiting for the other person to call, the call's never going to connect. You need one person to be able to make the call and one to receive, just to get a good communication. And that's the same as mind reading. Some of you will be better at receiving information, other people will be better at dispelling and sending information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to gauge which camp you fit into. So everybody stand up for me. So now everybody stands up. Let's say, for example's sake now, everybody sits down at the same time, which can happen. You know, we're doing this in Italy, so you'll love this. I'm doing this in Italy and everybody else had a translator, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And I said I'll speak slowly and concisely. I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the psychological forces with a translator in between. And a good portion of the audience spoke English, and I thought if there's anybody else in the audience that doesn't understand, there's always that one person that can translate next to them, right? So I'm doing the psychological force of the apple. I'm really going to try to find this footage as well, because if I can find it, it's unbelievable. I'm doing the force, and there's about 500 people in the audience, and every single one of them sat down, right? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, like that's incredible. And on camera it looked amazing. If I can find it, I'll put it on. But when I were reflecting on the situation, I realised that most of the people didn't speak English. There were a good portion of them. But because they'd seen the people that did speak English sit down, they thought it were a cue to sit down. So everybody sat down at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the few people that were left standing thought, oh, I don't want to stay standing. So they sat as well. And I just did an entire audience wipeout in one
I wonder
force.
how many stooges you'd need in the audience to make that happen.
Do you know what? I wonder, because it'd be the same as the standing ovation, but in reverse, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right. But what were nice about the way that I frame it up is with a phone call, let's say 50% of the audience sit down and 50% remain standing. Then you say the people that have just sat down, those people are the people that are better at receiving information. The people standing are better at sending information. Later on, I'm going to be asking for people that are good at sending information and some people that are good at receiving information. Don't nominate yourself if you're somebody who's good at sending information if you were one of the people that's better at receiving. It won't work.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. It looks like I was just gauging there. Secondly, if I nail 70 or 80% of the audience and they sit down, I turn around and say, and that's influence. It'll work on about 80% of people. And then you go, the other 20%, those people are usually better at sending information. They'd be great to send stuff for me to read. So now you've created that. If nobody sits down whatsoever, or just a few people sit down, you can go, the few people that sat down there, these are the people that I need to watch out for. Because they're good at receiving information from me, but it'd be almost impossible for me to read their mind.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody else that stood up, guess what? You're going to be the victims. You're going to be the contestants on the show tonight, or whatever, right? However you want to roll into it. And I change the script every time I'm performing, but and so it allows you now that space to miss, right? But I took that and I thought about it in the context of close-up performance. And if you open up a macro to a table and you perform on everybody and you say, we'll go with the majority vote of the table, what is it you went for? What is it you went for? What is it you went for?
Yeah.
And now, if you've got 2 that missed but 3 that hit, you've got a hit. If it's a split 50-50, you can use one of the 50-50 techniques that we're talking about to bring it back to a hit. If not, let's say that you ask everybody at the table to do it at the same time, and you notice that only one person's hit before mentioning, don't mention out the gate, we'll go with the majority. Now what you can do is you can use equivocate for one person at the table to nominate themselves as the judge, and it just might be that person. Just one of you nominate yourself to be the judge. If that person puts their hands up, I say, good, you nominated yourself, what was it you went for? And then that works there. If not, now that person's the judge, and now you use equivocate to get down to the one person that picked the apple. So now your force is successful every single time. Mm-hmm. The only time it's not going to be successful is when nobody goes for it. And when nobody goes for it, what you do is you fold it up and you say, we'll get back to this later on, just put that into your pocket. And I am going off on a bit of a tangent, but I had this idea, right? And I don't think I ever shared this with you, but I think it's really cool. And I shared it with Fraser Parker. He were working on something. And the only reason I didn't really pursue it is because this thing that Fraser were working on at the time was so close to it. I didn't want what I were creating muddying up what he was doing. So I didn't want to be an influence or take him away from the thought path or the path that he were on. So imagine that you took a load of characteristics that all equated to one thing. So you know that an apple's red.
Yep.
You know it's something that you can hold in your hand. You know it's organic. You know that it's fairly firm if you squeeze it.
Yeah.
You know that you could say it's green.
It's weight or something.
Yeah, so now imagine picking all those characteristics, right? And you get somebody to shuffle these cards, right? And then what you do is you have a stack of them that are not similar in any way, shape or form, right? So you could show, look, this is grey and it's rough, or this is that. Now you can get them to mix them and take 2 each, and they look at them and you say the 2 characteristics you've got are completely different, right? Choose the one that you want. So now they choose the one that they want and they put it down and they get rid of the characteristics they don't want.
Yeah.
But now you can switch out a few of those cards and say, oh, let's look at a few of the things that you could have had.
Yeah.
So now you point out, like, this is large, this is man-made, this is this. What's really cool about that now is the Hoy principle takes effect there, because you're not showing all the cards that were eliminated, just a few of them. Yeah. So everybody at the table now believes that somebody else had those opposite characteristics.
Right.
But what's really cool is now if you've got something that this is handheld, it's organic, it's red, you know, and you can eat its food.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden now you're guaranteeing a mechanical force of an apple.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody thought that the choice was so vast that and I never did anything with it, but I just thought it were a really interesting version of like Out of This World mixed with like the Hoy principle, mixed with like these characteristics. But yeah, sorry, I'm just going off on a tangent. But yeah,
somebody can run with something like that.
It was just a really little wonderful thing. Do you know what I mean? Have you got any questions about the Apple Force or anything that you want to talk about?
So what would you say the second most likely thing to hit is? It's the orange, right?
Ball.
A ball.
So it goes apple, ball, orange.
So apple, red ball?
Yeah.
And then the orange. Because I was having these thoughts about maybe an ambiguous prediction. So if you could imagine a not quite orange, not quite red, like a very orangey red kind of round thing as the prediction, then maybe you could thumb write a stalk, use some thumb writer to put a little stalk on it if it was the apple, or
that's cool.
Or a dot if it was the orange, or leave it plain if it's the ball. So like some idea, maybe some multiple out there.
That's really great. You could even have the stalk. You could have the card laminated and draw it on in dry wipe.
Oh, great! Yeah.
So,
better, yeah.
So
or
now
it might work on a photograph anyway. Yeah.
That's it. On a photograph. And so now you could just thumb it off. And if you gradiented orange to red, so it looked like the red with a shade on the orange. Do you know what I mean? Now it looked like the natural light on the top, and you could just wipe off with a swipe.
That's cool. Yeah.
Like I love stuff like that. You know, little changing predictions and stuff that.
The other thing I was going to ask you about, you use the negating of the iPhone or the mobile phone at the beginning, and I wondered if that's because you found that was quite often an object that hit. Is that why you use that one in particular? It were
to eliminate the technology category.
Okay.
Because I wanted to eliminate man-made without saying don't think of something that's man-made.
I thought so. Because the only reason I was asking is because, again, Apple could be an ambiguous prediction now if you're talking about an Apple iPhone.
You just give me a brilliant. You could say based on that. You could say I could tell you the exact reason that you went for it. Did you feel influenced? No. Remember me mentioning the mobile phone?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
It's great.
Yeah.
That's why I love these little jam sessions. Do you know what I mean? You can come up with so much. But yeah, it's not really something to overthink. It's not a big effect, but at the same time, I think it's a really powerful thing, and especially if you're filming, and you're filming and you do it, and then you say, "Have you got something in mind?" and then you take it out and you bite it or whatever.
Yeah.
I think there's something that's really nice and strong about that. I mean, I'm happy to wrap this there because there's not too much to it.
And I think that in terms of if you need an out, I think that we cover them in our other sections, like one heading or perhaps using one ahead with another of these psychological forces and things like that. So we're not going to go through any particular outs on this one.
Yeah, we don't need to.
Because there's some general outs that will get you out of a lot of trouble. So
yeah, I think that's that. That's nice.
Thank you.